What would you do if you discovered the woman you couldn't forget from years ago was raising your children, children you never knew existed? For Master Han, that question wasn't hypothetical, but the crossroads that would redefine his entire existence. From commanding boardrooms to moving bricks under a scorching sun, his transformation defied everything his wealthy family believed about class and status. The social elite called him insane. Why would a billionaire CEO disguise himself as a common laborer? The answer challenged not just his identity, but an entire system built on privilege and appearance. His journey reveals what happens when love forces a man to choose between the empire he built and the family he never knew he needed. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, a like and a subscribe would mean the world to me. It really helps the channel grow and keeps you in the loop for all the latest content. Master Han's world revolved around numbers, deals, and the cold satisfaction of corporate conquest. His corner office on the 50th floor offered a panoramic view of the city he dominated, a fitting metaphor for how he observed life from a calculated distance, always above the fray. The meticulous organization of his desk mirrored his approach to existence. Everything in its place, no room for disorder or spontaneity. His assistant knew better than to reschedule meetings without proper notice, and board members had learned that his penetrating gaze could silence even the most confident challenger. The evening had begun like countless others, a charity gala, where the elite exchanged pleasantries while secretly measuring each other's influence. Master Han moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his tailored suit and subtle watch communicating wealth without ostentation. He'd perfected the art of meaningful conversation that revealed nothing personal, maintaining the carefully constructed wall between himself and others. This was comfort for him, predictable, controlled, and emptied of messy emotional entanglements. So when he glimpsed her across the room, the momentary falter in his composure was noticeable only to those paying closest attention. She wasn't supposed to be here. In his worlds of marble floors and champagne flutes, their worlds had collided once before, years ago. A temporary intersection he'd filed away as a brief indiscretion. Yet there she stood, somehow more striking than he remembered, engaged in conversation with the event organizer. Master Han found himself watching her longer than propriety allowed, noting the confidence in her posture that hadn't been there before. "Mr. Han, I believe you two may have met," the host said, having materialized beside him, with the woman in tow. The introduction landed with the subtlety of a thunderclap in the quiet room. Master Han extended his hand automatically, muscle memory saving him from the stunned silence, threatening to expose his discomfort. "I believe we have," he managed, his voice betraying nothing of the sudden acceleration of his heart rate. Her smile held something knowing, something that suggested this encounter wasn't accidental. Their conversation remained superficial, veiled in the language of polite society, but the undercurrent pulled stronger with each exchanged pleasantry. When she mentioned needing to leave early, he found himself offering to share his car service, an unprecedented break from his careful routine. The 20-minute drive took them away from the gleaming towers of corporate power, toward a residential neighborhood Master Han rarely had reason to visit. "I'd like you to meet someone," she said, as the car slowed before a modest apartment complex. Two someones, actually. His curiosity, rarely piqued by anything outside business matters, overcame his usual caution. Following her up 3 flights of stairs, Master Han entered an apartment that was the antithesis of his minimalist penthouse. Warm colors, mismatched furniture, walls adorned with children's artwork. Before he could process this alien environment, they appeared 2 children, perhaps 6 years old, with features that caused his carefully ordered reality to tilt dangerously. "Are they mine?" The words escaped before he could contain them, his usual diplomatic filter shattered by shock. Her reply wasn't immediate, but the look she gave him, half challenge, half resignation, confirmed what his instincts had already recognized. These children, one quietly observing him with curious eyes, the other partially hidden behind a caretaker, shared his blood. Are they mine? He repeated, his voice now barely audible, as if saying it louder might make this surreal situation more permanent. The calculated CEO, accustomed to controlling every variable in his environment, suddenly found himself adrift in uncharted territory. Yes, Master Han, they're yours, she finally answered, the formality of using his title a stark reminder of the vast social distance between them. The following hours passed in a blur of revelation and bewilderment. The twins, a boy and girl with his eyes and her smile, were put to bed while he sat rigidly on a worn couch, attempting to process information that threatened the very foundation of his identity. She explained the circumstances matter-of-factly, discovering her pregnancy weeks after their brief encounter. Her decision to raise the children independently when attempts to contact him were unsuccessful. Her recent recognition of his name on the charity board. I don't like kids, he stated flatly, grasping for any familiar thought in this sea of disorientation. The words hung in the air, sounding hollow even to his own ears. I'm aware, she replied with unexpected gentleness. I'm not asking you to like them. I'm not asking you for anything. They're thriving, as you can see. I simply thought they deserved to know their father, and you deserve to know they exist. Master Han's analytical mind, trained to solve complex problems, immediately tried to reduce this situation to manageable components. We'll need verification, of course, he said, reverting to the language of business, DNA testing, and then we can discuss arrangements. Arrangement? Her eyebrow raised slightly. Financial support, educational trusts, whatever is appropriate. The words felt inadequate, even as he spoke them. That's not why I brought you here, she said, her calm certainty a counterpoint to his internal chaos. Money isn't what they need from you. For the first time in years, Master Han found himself without a strategy. His gaze traveled around the modest apartment, noting the carefully mended cushions, the stack of library books, the hand-me-down toys organized in colorful bins. The contrast with his sterile penthouse, with its designer furniture that no child had ever climbed on, struck him with unexpected force. In the days that followed, Master Han moved through his professional life on autopilot, while his mind remained fixated on the twins. The DNA test he insisted upon was a formality. He'd recognized himself in their features immediately. When the results confirmed his paternity, the scientific validation somehow made the situation more real than the visual evidence. He found himself drawn back to the apartment, initially with the pretext of discussing practical matters. Each visit revealed new aspects of these small humans who carried his genetic code. The girl's determined focus with blocks, the boy's thoughtful questions about how things worked, the easy affection between them and their mother, a form of interaction so foreign to his own upbringing that he observed it with anthropological fascination. His carefully compartmentalized existence began to blur. Board meetings that once commanded his full attention now found him distracted by memories of tiny hands or curious eyes. His executive assistant noticed his unprecedented behavior, leaving the office at reasonable hours, declaiming weekend conferences, requesting information about school districts and childhood development. The luxury penthouse that had once felt like a perfect expression of his success now seemed empty in ways he couldn't articulate. Standing before floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Master Han realized that his carefully constructed world no longer fit. The reflection staring back at him was a stranger, a man whose identity had been built entirely around achievement and acquisition, with no space for the messy, unpredictable business of family. The reflection in the penthouse windows now seemed trivial compared to the portraits of 7 generations of Han patriarchs that lined the walls of the family's ancestral home. These imposing figures, captured in oils and stern expressions, bore silent witness as Master Han entered the grand hall for the first time since confirming the news about his twins' boarding. The Han family compound, with its meticulously maintained gardens and traditional architecture juxtaposed against modern luxury, had been the epicenter of his childhood, a place where lessons about bloodlines and dynasty were as fundamental as learning to walk. Now, as he moved through spaces that once represented certainty and belonging, Master Han felt like an intruder in his own heritage. "Is it true?" His mother's voice cut through the silence of the family's private dining room. Before he had fully crossed the threshold, she stood rigidly by a table, already set for an uncomfortable family dinner, her perfectly arranged appearance betraying no emotion save for the slight tremor in her hand. "Please tell me these rumors about some common woman and her children are fabricated." Master Han had anticipated anger, perhaps even disappointment, but the raw dismay in his mother's eyes caught him unprepared. "The DNA results are conclusive," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "They are my children." The carefully orchestrated family dinner that followed became a tribunal where Master Han found himself both prosecutor and defendant. His father, silent and brooding at the head of the table, had yet to utter a word. His aunt, however, more than compensated for this silence with her pointed interrogation. "Who exactly is this woman?" she demanded, between delicate bites of food that never seemed to diminish on her plate. "What do we know about her family? Her background? Surely she planned this, targeted you specifically." The accusations continued, each more venomous than the last. His cousin suggested the woman must have manipulated the DNA results. His uncle questioned whether she had intentionally become pregnant to secure financial gain. With each passing minute, the twins were transformed from children into calculating conspirators, despite being mere 6-year-olds. "I've had my investigators look into her background," his father finally spoke, placing his chopsticks precisely alongside his bowl. "She comes from nothing. Her father was a factory worker who died when she was young. Her mother cleans houses. There is no pedigree, no education of note, nothing that would make her suitable to be associated with the Han name." The clinical dissection of the woman who had raised his children alone for years made something shift inside Master Han. He thought of her modest apartment, the careful way she maintained her dignity despite limited means, and the devoted manner in which she had raised their children without his knowledge or support. "Perhaps," his aunt suggested, with what she clearly thought was generosity, "we could arrange a suitable payment, enough to ensure her silence and comfort, but not so much as to encourage further entanglements. The children could be provided for through a discreet trust. This need not become a public matter." The suggestion hung in the air like smoke, acrid and suffocating. Master Han found himself remembering the woman's fierce protective stance when he had first appeared at her door. How she had positioned herself between him and the children without hesitation. "These two little bastards should not have been allowed to be born from the beginning," his uncle muttered, the casual cruelty of his words landing like a physical blow. For the first time in his adult life, Master Han felt a protective rage rise within him, not for his business interests or personal reputation, but for two small children who shared his blood and were being condemned by people who had never met them. "They have names," he said quietly, interrupting his aunt's detailed explanation of how the situation could be managed. "They are not bastards or entanglements. They are children, my children." The room fell silent, the weight of his defiance palpable. His father's eyes narrowed dangerously. "I think you're confused. Perhaps the shock of discovery has clouded your judgment. You've built a legacy worthy of the single night's indiscretion." The doctor tilted his head slowly, like a pusher's pose, and before he could say a word, Len leaned forward, shaking his head backward, a finger to his lips. A protein fall over so slowly spilled over to the paper, a few seconds too long, too tenuous, too formal, too contractional. Master Han considered the question. 6 weeks ago, he might have agreed with his father's assessment. His identity had been so completely defined by achievement and position that the notion of risking either would have been unthinkable. But something had shifted when he saw those children, when he recognized his own eyes looking back at him with innocent curiosity. What legacy? he asked, genuinely curious. Building wealth for wealth's sake? Maintaining social standing among people we don't even like? Are these the achievements 7 generations of Hans have worked toward? His father's face hardened into a mask of controlled fury. You forget yourself. Everything you have, your education, your position, your connections, all of it comes from the family you now seem so eager to disappoint. The confrontation escalated as dinner concluded. In his father's private study, surrounded by even more ancestral reminders, the final ultimatum came with brutal clarity. I'm only going to ask you one last time, his father said, his voice dangerously low. Where do your loyalties lie? With the family that has given you everything, or with these common children? The implication was clear. Acknowledging the twins publicly would mean losing his position within both the family and the company. His inheritance, his status, his very identity as the Han heir would be forfeit. The business empire he had helped expand would continue without him. Master Han thought of his penthouse, his tailored suits, his meticulously organized life. Then he thought of the twins, the way they had looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness, the echo of his own features. And they're not just my children, he said finally, meeting his father's gaze without flinching. They're your grandchildren. They carry the Han blood you claim to value so highly. Will you reject them simply because their mother wasn't selected from an approved list? His father's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between them. You make your choice then. Bear the consequences. Master Han nodded once, understanding that a bridge had been crossed. I'll bear them, but so will you. You're choosing to deny your own bloodline out of pride and prejudice. Which of us is truly betraying the family legacy? He left the family compound that night with the distinct understanding that he had initiated a wartime one with casualties beyond himself. For the first time in his life, Master Han had defied the family that had shaped him, defined him, and controlled him for decades. The sensation was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Master Han had conquered boardrooms and business rivals without breaking a sweat, but the silent stares of 2 small children paralyzed him in ways no corporate adversary ever could. Their eyes, his eyes, reflected back at him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion that cut deeper than any business negotiation gone wrong. These were his children, yet they looked at him as if he were a stranger attempting to sell them something they didn't. The pristine living room of their modest apartment became an unfamiliar battlefield. Master Han stood awkwardly by the doorway, his arms laden with elaborately wrapped packages that suddenly seemed ridiculous. He had spent hours selecting what he believed were appropriate gifts, a handcrafted music box for Gulu that played a classical melody when wounded, and for Shua, a miniature sports car that cost more than some actual vehicles. These were the kinds of presents that would impress business associates or their children. Surely they would work here too. I thought you might like these, he said, his voice unnaturally stiff as he extended the packages toward the twins, who remained firmly positioned behind their mother's legs. Shuai, the more outspoken of the two, peered around his mother's hip and frowned. We already have toys. The simple statement landed like a slap. Master Han wasn't accustomed to having his offerings rejected. He placed the gifts on the coffee table and tried to smile, but the expression felt foreign on his face. The twins exchanged glances with each other, a silent communication system he couldn't begin to decode. Gulu eventually approached the music box, unwrapping it with careful fingers. She wound the key and listened to the melody for approximately 7 seconds before setting it aside with a polite "thank you" that held no warmth. Shua didn't even touch his gift. Master Han stood there, hands empty, strategy depleted. The corporate takeovers and international negotiate. Weren't you at my birthday? Shuai suddenly asked, his small voice steady but loaded with accusation. The questions hung in the air between them, simple yet devastating in their directness. Master Han opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in decades, he found himself completely without words. What could he possibly say? That he didn't know they existed? That he had been busy accumulating wealth they clearly didn't care about? That he had been living in a penthouse obsessing over quarterly reports while they were learning to walk and talk? The silence stretched uncomfortably until their mother mercifully suggested the twins go play in their room. They disappeared quickly, clearly relieved to escape the awkward encounter. Left alone with their mother, Master Han ran a hand through his immaculately styled hair. "They hate me," he said quietly. "They don't know you," she corrected. "There's a difference." The distinction offered little comfort. Master Han had spent his entire adult life building a fortune and reputation that commanded instant respect. Yet here, in this apartment that could fit inside his master bathroom, none of that mattered. His wealth, his connections, his influence, the tools he'd always relied on to solve problems, were utterly useless against the simple truth that his children viewed him as an intruder in their lives. During subsequent visits, Master Han observed the twins from what felt like an unbridgeable distance. He watched as they laughed easily with their mother, their faces animated and natural, in ways they never were with him. They moved around her with the comfortable choreography of people who had built their lives together, while he remained an awkward spectator, uncertain where to stand or what to say. One afternoon, as the twins worked on homework at the kitchen table, Master Han attempted to help Shua with a math problem. The boy stiffened at his approach. "Mom already showed me how to do it," he said, sliding his paper away from Master Han's reaching hand. The rejection stung more than Master Han would have expected. He retreated to the living room couch, pretending to check emails while covertly watching the family interact. Gulu whispered something that made her brother laugh, and their mother ruffled their hair as she passed by with a basket of laundry. The casual intimacy of the scene made Master Han's chest tighten with an unfamiliar sensation that took him a moment to identify as envy. These children, who shared his DNA, were complete mysteries to him. He didn't know their favorite foods or colors, or how they liked to spend rainy days. He couldn't distinguish between his genuine laugh and his polite one. He had no idea what made Gulu cry, or what comforted her when she did. The realization of how much he had missed, how much he didn't know, hit him with unexpected force. Later that week, Master Han arrived with a new strategy. Instead of bringing extravagant gifts, he simply sat in the corner of the living room and watched. He observed how Gulu always arranged her colored pencils in rainbow order before drawing, how Shia couldn't sit still for more than 5 minutes without bouncing his leg, how both children tilted their heads exactly the same way when concentrating. When Gulu struggled to reach a book on a high shelf, Master Han resisted the urge to immediately solve the problem. Instead, he waited until she looked his way before asking, "Would you like some help with that?" The small nod she gave him felt more significant than any business deal he'd ever closed. He began to learn their rhythms, their preferences. He discovered that Shuai detested green vegetables, but would eat them if they were hidden in fried rice. He noticed that Gulu always saved her favorite toy, a well-worn stuffed rabbit, for last when organizing her collection. These small details, insignificant to the outside world, became precious knowledge that he carefully collected and cataloged. "Do you like dragons?" Shay asked him unexpectedly one evening, as he colored a ferocious-looking creature in his drawing book. "I've never given it much thought," Master Han answered honestly. Shuai looked genuinely bewildered. "Everyone has to like something," he said, with the absolute certainty of a child. The simple statement gave Master Han pause. What did he like? Not for its status value or investment potential, but simply for the joy of it. He couldn't immediately recall. His life had been so thoroughly defined by acquisition and achievement that he'd forgotten how to appreciate things simply because they brought pleasure. "I think I might like dragons," he finally said, "especially red ones." Shuai nodded approvingly and slid a crayon toward him. "You can color this one if you want." The invitation felt monumental. Master Han carefully accepted the crayon and began coloring inside the lines of the dragon Shueya had indicated, aware that he was being evaluated on more than his artistic skills. Weeks passed, and while the twins remained cautious around him, Small breakthroughs began to accumulate. Gulu showed him her collection of shiny rocks. Shai asked him to time how long he could hold his breath. Tiny moments of connection that Master Han cherished more than any business victory. He came to realize that earning his place in their lives wouldn't happen through grand gestures or expensive presents. It would happen through consistently showing up, through genuinely listening to their stories, no matter how seemingly inconsequential, through demonstrating with his actions rather than his words that he wanted to be part of their world. Master Han's growing attachment to his children had begun to shift something fundamental within him, but the woman who'd raised them remained a fortress he couldn't breach. "You could never understand my life," she told him one evening, her voice carrying years of struggle, while he had prospered in his penthouse office. The words hung between them, a challenge that gnawed at him long after he'd returned to his empty luxury apartment. That night, as he stared at his reflection in the window overlooking the glittering city that had always bent to his will, Master Han made a decision that would have shocked his business associates and horrified his family. If she wouldn't accept the billionaire CEO, perhaps she would connect with someone who truly understood the weight of her daily existence. "I have never experienced true human feelings," he admitted to himself in the stillness of his penthouse. "Why don't I hide my identity and get along with her for now?" The plan formed with the same precision he applied to corporate takeovers. He would infiltrate her world and learn its rhythms from within. The construction company where she worked as an office manager had recently broken ground on a new development. A few well-placed calls secured him a position as a brick mover, far from the administrative offices where she might recognize him. His transformation began in his walk-in closet, larger than most people's apartments. He pushed aside tailored suits worth thousands to find the plainest clothes he owned, still too refined for a construction site. A trip to a discount store, an experience foreign enough to make him uncomfortable, yielded work boots that felt stiff and unforgiving, jeans that lacked the custom fit he was accustomed to, and shirts made of material that irritated his skin. The disguise was completed with a worn cap pulled low, and 3 days of uncharacteristic stubble that itched incessantly. His first day on site delivered a shock more profound than any business crisis he'd weathered. Within an hour, his manicured hands developed angry red blisters that burst painfully by midday. The foreman, a weathered man named, he collapsed against a concrete barrier, unable to lift the water bottle to his cracked lips. The other workers gave him skeptical glances but offered practical advice. "Eat more protein," suggested one man named Tao, sharing homemade dumplings his wife had packed. "Your body needs fuel for this kind of work." Master Han had never before considered food as functional rather than pleasurable or social. That night, he could barely drag himself into a hot bath, his skin sun-reddened and muscles spasming with unfamiliar use. Yet he returned the next day, and the next. The physical demands never eased, but his body began adapting, developing calluses where blisters had been, muscles strengthening where weakness had made him tremble. What changed more dramatically was his perception of the men and women who surrounded him. They arrived early, bodies already tired from second jobs or family responsibilities, and worked tirelessly under conditions Master Han would never have tolerated in his corporate headquarters. The summer heat baked the site until the air shimmered, yet his co-workers' conversations during breaks revealed lives poised on precarious edges. Tao worried constantly about his son's university tuition. Another man, named Wei, couldn't afford surgery for a persistent back injury. A young woman named Mei worked construction by day and waited tables by night, sending most of her earnings to her parents in a rural village. These weren't abstract economic statistics. They were people with dreams and dignity, compressed by systems that Master Han had helped design and perpetuate. Sometimes he caught glimpses of her, the mother of his children, moving between site offices with purpose and efficiency. From this vantage point, he observed qualities he'd missed in their previous encounters. She commanded respect without demanding it, mediating disputes between contractors with firm fairness. When supplies ran late, threatening costly delays, she negotiated solutions that protected both the company's interests and the workers' schedule. Her competence was striking, particularly given the casual dismissiveness some male supervisors displayed toward her. 3 weeks into his charade, a pivotal moment arrived unexpectedly. An investor touring the site began berating me over a minor documentation error, his voice rising to a public humiliation. Master Han recognized the man. They'd shared drinks at exclusive clubs, congratulating each other on deals that maximized profit by minimizing labor costs. Now, watching him tower over the young woman, spittle flying as he questioned her intelligence and worth, something cracked inside Master. "That's enough," he said, stepping between them, his voice carrying the unconscious authority of command. The investor blinked in surprise at being challenged by a mere laborer. "This doesn't concern you," the man sneered. "When you disrespect my colleague, it concerns all of us," Master Han replied evenly. "The error you're describing would have originated in your own office's communications. I suggest you verify your facts before making accusations." The investor's face flushed with anger. "Do you know who I am? I could have you fired with one call." Master Han nearly laughed at the irony. This man couldn't begin to imagine who he was truly threatening. Instead, he simply stated, "And I could ensure every worker on this site knows exactly how your company treats people. Which would cause more damage, I wonder?" The confrontation ended with the investor's hasty retreat, but its effect lingered. The workers regarded Master Han differently afterward, including him in their inner circles and conversations. More significantly, he caught the woman watching him with newfound curiosity, perhaps seeing something familiar in his stance or speech patterns. That evening, sitting with his co-workers, sharing simple noodles at a street stall, Master Han experienced an uncomfortable epiphany. The economic system that had elevated him to unimaginable wealth was the same system grinding these people down. His success wasn't merely the result of his intelligence or work ethic. It was built upon structures that systematically advantaged some while disadvantaging others. The revelation left him deeply conflicted about the empire he'd constructed. After a month undercover, Master Han's transformation was more than physical. His hands had toughened, his skin had darkened under the sun, and his body had shed its executive softness. But the more profound change was internal. He found himself genuinely caring about his co-workers' struggles, respecting their resilience, and questioning the vast disparities he'd previously accepted as natural economic order. Most disorienting was his evolving perception of the woman. Watching her navigate challenges with grace and determination, he understood why his children had grown into such remarkable little people under her care. His admiration deepened daily, accompanied by the uncomfortable knowledge that his deception, however well-intentioned, was building their connection on false pretenses. As their connection deepened through shared lunches, Master Han found himself caught in a paradox of his own making. The woman had begun to smile when he approached, no longer guarding her expressions with the wariness he'd first encountered. Their conversations about the twins flowed easier now, punctuated by genuine laughter and the comfort that comes from shared understanding. He learned about Gulu's latest art project, a family portrait, where she'd drawn him on the far edge of the paper, a telling placement he didn't miss. Shuai had finally made the school soccer team, something the woman mentioned with unmistakable pride in her voice. Fate has a particular cruelty in how it chooses its moments of revelation. Just as Master Han and the woman had established a fragile rhythm to their relationship, his carefully constructed identity teetered on the edge of exposure. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the kind where nothing remarkable should have occurred. The construction crew had just returned from lunch, the air filled with idle conversation and the rhythmic sounds of work resuming. Master Han was securing his safety helmet when a sleek black car pulled up to the site, the kind of vehicle that immediately seemed out of place among the dusty trucks and worn equipment. "Han Zihao?" The voice carried across the site like a thunderclap. Master Han froze, recognizing both the voice and the face of Zhang Wei, his company's vice president of operations. "What on earth are you doing dressed like that? We've been trying to reach you about the Singapore merger for 2 days." The silence that followed was absolute, a vacuum where even the machinery seemed to hold its breath. Every head turned toward Master Han, their expressions transforming in waves: confusion, disbelief, and then understanding. The woman stood nearby, files clutched against her chest, her face draining of color as Zhang Wei continued, oblivious to the damage he was inflicting with each word. "The board meeting is in 3 hours. You can't be playing construction worker when we're finalizing a multi-billion-dollar deal. Your secretary said you'd been acting strange, but this—" "Stop talking." Master Han's voice emerged low and dangerous, but it was too late. The construction site had gone completely silent, every worker watching the unfolding scene. Most devastating was the expression on the woman's face, hurt giving way to humiliation, then hardening into something worse: contempt. She turned without a word and walked toward the site office, her back rigid. Master Han moved to follow her, but found his path blocked by Lao Wang and 2 other workers. Their previous camaraderie evaporated. "So the Han Group heir's been slumming it with us common folk?" Lao Yang's voice carried for everyone to hear. "What was this research on how the other half lives?" The murmurs spread through the site like fire through dry brush. By the time Master Han pushed past them toward the office, whispers had transformed into open hostility. Workers who had shared their lunches with him now stared with betrayal in their eyes, as if he'd stolen something precious from them. In a way, he had: their dignity, their belief that they'd been respected as equals. When he finally reached the office, she was gathering her things, movements sharp with anger. "It was never meant to be like this," he started, closing the door behind him. "Like what? A joke? A game?" Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes remained dry. "Was I part of some billionaire's social experiment? Let's see how the poor people live. Or maybe you needed to study us to better exploit workers like the ones out there who trusted you. That's not— They invited you into their homes," she continued, voice rising. "Wei's wife made you dinner when you helped fix their roof. Tao showed you pictures of his son's graduation. They treated you like family while you lied to their faces." The full impact of his deception hit Master Han with crushing force. Each interaction, each connection he'd made under false pretenses, now appeared in a different light. He hadn't seen how his actions, regardless of intent, reinforced the very power imbalance he'd been trying to overcome. "I wanted to understand your world," he attempted, the words sounding hollow, even to his own ears. "Understand?" She laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "You could leave any time. Return to your penthouse and expensive suits. This isn't a world to understand. It's our life. We don't get to step out when it gets uncomfortable." Master Han stood silent, stripped of the practiced responses that served him in boardrooms. For weeks, he'd constructed an identity as a simple worker, believing it would bridge the gap between them. Instead, it had widened into an unbridgeable chasm. Every genuine connection he'd thought they'd built now seemed tainted by his deception. "I was afraid," he finally admitted, voice quiet. The confession surprised even him. Han Ziehao, feared business magnate, acknowledging fear. "I was afraid you would never see past what I am. My wealth, my position, my family name. That you would always keep the twins distant from me because of it. So instead you lied?" The bitterness in her voice cut deep. "You thought deceiving me would somehow prove you're trustworthy?" Outside, the whispers had transformed into a commotion as workers gathered, their anger at being deceived fueling a growing hostility. Someone pounded on the office door. "You used us all as props in your personal redemption story," she continued, gathering the last of her belongings. "Did it ever occur to you how this would make me feel? To learn I've been opening up to someone who doesn't even exist?" The truth of her words struck Master Han with devastating clarity. In his determination to earn her trust, he had violated it completely. His disguise, intended to remove barriers, had instead built a wall of deception between them. "I failed," he admitted, moving away from the door where the voices outside grew louder. "I failed completely. But what I felt, what I feel for you and the children, that was never false." She paused, uncertainty flickering across her face for just a moment, before hardening again. "Words, Han Ji-hai, just more words from a man who's proven they mean nothing." Master Han watched as she moved toward the door, knowing that when she walked through it, everything would change. The fragile connection they'd built, the tentative path toward co-parenting they'd begun to forge, all of it could vanish in this moment. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said, desperation edging into his voice. "But the twins, they need both of us. Whatever you think of me, please don't let my mistakes cost them another parent." She stopped, hand on the doorknob, back still turned to him. Outside, Zhang Wei could be heard arguing with the workers, threatening to call security. The two worlds Master Han had tried to keep separate were colliding violently, and he stood at the epicenter of the destruction. When she finally turned, her expression had shifted not to forgiveness, but to something more complicated. "This isn't about you or me," she said, voice steady. "It's about Gulu and Schwad. They've asked about you every day this week. Whatever game you were playing with me, they shouldn't suffer for it." It wasn't acceptance, barely even tolerance, but it was an opening, narrow and conditional, yet present. Master Han recognized it for the precious opportunity it was. "I will earn back your trust," he said simply, not with words or promises, but with time and consistency. She didn't acknowledge his statement, instead opening the door to face the crowd of angry workers. "I'm leaving for the day," she announced to everyone. "And so is he. We all have work to do tomorrow." The message was clear. She wasn't forgiving, but she was creating space for whatever came next. As Master Han followed her out, facing the hostile stares of men who had days earlier shared cigarettes and stories with him, he understood the magnitude of the challenge ahead. His deception had been revealed, but so had his vulnerability. Now he would have to navigate both worlds openly, facing judgment from every direction. His family, her community, and most importantly, from the woman whose trust he'd shattered. Master Han's sedan crawled through midday traffic, each minute ticking by like a countdown to inevitable confrontation. His phone hadn't stopped vibrating since leaving the construction site. 17 missed calls from the board chairman, a man who had never called him more than once in a decade. The corporate sharks had caught the scent of blood in the water. By the time he reached the company headquarters, the building he once viewed as his second home now loomed like a fortress preparing for siege. The security guard's eyes widened slightly as Master Han strode through the lobby in his dust-covered work clothes, a far cry from the immaculate suits that had become his trademark. The elevator ride to the executive floor was mercifully empty, giving him precious moments to prepare for what waited above. The executive assistant's face told him everything he needed to know. "They're all waiting in the main boardroom, sir," she whispered, her usual composure fractured by genuine concern. "The chairman called an emergency session 30 minutes ago." Master Han nodded, not bothering to change clothes. Let them see him exactly as he was. The construction dust still clinging to his hands would speak volumes about his recent choices. The boardroom doors felt unusually heavy as he pushed them open. 14 faces turned toward him simultaneously, expressions ranging from carefully neutral to barely concealed triumph. The massive mahogany table that had witnessed countless victories now felt like a court bench awaiting his sentence. Chairman Lu's perpetually stern face seemed carved from stone as he gestured to the empty seat at the head of the table. "How good of you to join us, Han," the chairman said, his voice carrying the practiced evenness of a man who had already decided the outcome of this meeting. "We were beginning to worry you might be otherwise occupied." The subtle emphasis wasn't lost on anyone present. Master Han took his seat, noting how his CFO Young couldn't meet his eyes. while marketing director Zhao suddenly found his tablet utterly fascinating. These were men who had dined in his home, who had celebrated company milestones with champagne toasts to his leadership. "I understand there's concern about my recent activities," Master Han said, cutting directly to the heart of the matter. The room tensed, as if his directness had violated some unspoken protocol of corporate warfare, where true intentions were supposed to remain veiled behind pleasantries. Chairman Liu slid a tablet across the polished table. "Perhaps you'd care to explain this first." The screen displayed the morning's business news, a headline that made Master Han's stomach tighten. Han empire crumbling, CEO's erratic behavior raises questions about mental stability. The accompanying photo showed him at the construction site, captured from a distance but unmistakably him, hauling bricks alongside workers. "Or perhaps this requires your attention," added Vice President Wang, tapping a command that changed the display to a stock chart. The company's share price had dropped nearly 8% since markets opened that morning. "3 major investors have contacted me personally," Chairman Liu continued, his voice gaining an edge. "They're concerned about the direction of the company under leadership that appears unpredictable." The choreography was perfect, too perfect. Master Han recognized the coordinated attack for what it was. The stock drop, the strategic leaks to the press, the concerned calls from investors who had almost certainly been prompted by someone in this very room. This wasn't a spontaneous reaction to his recent behavior. It was a carefully orchestrated coup. "My life choices have nothing to do with my ability to lead this company," Master Han said, his voice steady, despite the anger building inside him. "Respect," interrupted Wang, who had never shown him genuine respect. "Your life choices speak directly to your judgment. Working as a common laborer, consorting with," he paused meaningfully, "individuals far below your station. These aren't the actions of the Master Han who built this company." "The Master Han who built this company," echoed Director Zhao, suddenly finding his voice, "understood the importance of perception, of maintaining certain standards. Our clients and partners expect stability, predictability." Master Han surveyed the faces around him, seeing clearly for the first time what had always been there, a pack of opportunists who had attached themselves to his success, waiting for the smallest sign of weakness. "Let me be direct," Chairman Liu said, folding his hands on the table. "The board has concerns that your personal transformation, while perhaps meaningful to you, poses unacceptable risks to this company. We're prepared to offer you a choice." Here it was. The ultimatum Master Han had sensed was coming, from the moment his true identity had been exposed at the construction site. "Either recommit yourself to the company priorities and leadership style that brought us success, severing these distractions." The chairman's voice hardened on the word, making it clear what he thought of Master Han's new family arrangements, or will be forced to consider alternative leadership arrangements. For the good of the company, of course. The boardroom fell silent, the air heavy with the weight of the challenge. In another life, the life he'd lived just months ago, Master Han would have viewed this as a simple business decision. The company was his identity, his legacy, the measure by which he'd always judged his worth. The choice would have been obvious. But now, sitting in his dust-covered clothes, with memories of his children's laughter still fresh in his mind, with the lingering impression of their mother's guarded but genuine smile when he'd managed to earn a moment of her trust, the equation had fundamentally changed. "I've spent 20 years building this company," Master Han said finally, his voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the hushed room. "I've sacrificed everything for it. My time, my health, meaningful connections. I believed those sacrifices were necessary for success." He stood, placing both hands on the table and leaning forward slightly. "But I've learned something in these past months that none of the business schools I attended ever taught. Success isn't measured solely by profit margins or market share. Those are important, yes, but they're empty achievements if they come at the cost of your humanity." Chairman Liu's expression darkened. "This isn't a philosophical debate, Han. This is about business," Master Han countered. "This is precisely about business, about what kind of business we want to build. One that exploits its workers while executives reap rewards from comfortable offices, or one that recognizes the dignity in all work, that values families, and understands that our employees are more than production units." A few board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but Wang scoffed openly. "Spare us the sentimentality. The shareholders don't care about your midlife crisis or sudden social conscience." "Actually," Master Han said, "I think they might." He tapped his own command into the tablet, bringing up a different presentation. "While you've been planning this coup, I've been working on something else." The screen displayed a comprehensive plan for company reform, improved worker benefits, safety protocols, childcare options, and more balanced work schedules for all employees. Alongside these changes were projected cost savings from reduced turnover, decreased workplace injuries, and increased productivity from a more engaged workforce. "This isn't charity," Master Han explained, his voice gaining strength. "This is sustainable business. My time at the construction site showed me what we've been missing. Our workers, at every level, deserve better. And when they receive better," he moved around the table slowly, making eye contact with each board member. "You present me with a false choice between my company and my family. I reject that premise entirely. I choose both, but on different terms, terms that acknowledge the humanity in all of us." The silence that followed was different from before, less calculated, more uncertain. Master Han had disrupted their carefully planned script. "If you want to remove me," he concluded, "you're welcome to try. But I suspect the shareholders might be interested in a vision that balances profit with people, especially when that balance promises greater sustainability and growth in the long term." The corporate battlefield had prepared Master Han for many things, but nothing had equipped him for the look of cautious skepticism in his daughter's eyes when he attempted to fix her broken toy. While stakeholders could be won over with strategic presentations and financial projections, children required something far more authentic, a currency he wasn't sure he possessed. "You're holding it wrong," Gulo said, gently taking the damaged butterfly wing from his hands. She demonstrated how to apply the glue with precision, her small fingers working with surprising dexterity. "See? It needs time to dry before you attach it." Master Han nodded, studying her technique with the same intensity he once reserved for market analyses. This was a new form of education, learning to exist in a space where his wealth and status meant nothing. Here, in this modest living room, with toys scattered across the floor and homework spread across the dining table, he was just a man trying to be a father. His first attempts at joining their evening routine had been painfully awkward. When he offered to help with dinner, he discovered he didn't know how to operate a standard rice cooker. His suggestion to order delivery was met with a patient explanation from their mother about budgeting and the importance of home-cooked meals. The twins watched with bemused expressions as he fumbled through setting the table, placing chopsticks on the wrong side of the bowl. "Like that," she had said, rearranging everything after him. "Mom likes the spoons here, and we always use the blue cups on Tuesdays." These established rituals, invisible threads of connection, had been woven long before his arrival. Each one represented a history he hadn't shared, inside jokes he didn't understand, and comfort patterns he constantly disrupted. When he sat in what turned out to be Gulu's preferred spot at the table, the silence that followed taught him more about family dynamics than any business negotiation ever could. One evening, while helping Shuai with math homework, Master Han noticed the woman sorting through a stack of papers at the kitchen table, her forehead creased with worry. Later he glimpsed the contents: medical bills, school fee notices, utility payments arranged in careful piles. The modest apartment suddenly appeared through new eyes, not simply as a small living space, but as a testament to years of careful sacrifice and management. "How have you managed all this?" he asked quietly, after the twins had gone to bed. She looked up, surprised by the question. "One day at a time," she answered. "Some months were harder than others. When Gulu needed braces last year, I picked up extra shifts. When Shuai outgrew his winter coat, I found one at the second-hand shop." The weight of these daily decisions, made without complaint year after year, settled on Master Han's shoulders. He had spent more on a single business dinner than what she had lived on for months. While he had been accumulating assets and expanding market share, she had been creating a home out of sheer determination and love. His childhood, by contrast, had been meticulously organized for achievement. Weekends filled with extra courses, summers dedicated to internships, relationships evaluated for strategic advantage. There had been wealth, certainly, but little of the spontaneous joy he witnessed when the twins erupted into laughter over a simple board game, or celebrated successfully making pancakes together. "Do you want to watch with us?" Shuai asked one Friday evening, holding up a DVD. "It's movie night. Mom makes special popcorn." Master Han abandoned his emails without hesitation, something that would have been unthinkable months earlier. The four of them crowded together on the small sofa, the twins nestled between the adults. When a particularly frightening scene appeared, mild by adult standards but apparently terrifying to 7-year-olds, Gulu instinctively reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. The simple gesture stunned him. This child, who had regarded him with such wariness, was now turning to him for protection. He gently squeezed her small hand, feeling something shift fundamentally within him. Later, catching the woman's gaze over the children's heads, he recognized she had witnessed the moment of connection. Her expression held something new, not quite acceptance, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. His phone rang during the movie's climax. The display showed Chairman Liu's name. An emergency board meeting had been called. 6 weeks ago, he would have left immediately. Instead, he silenced the phone and remained present, conscious that, in this moment, he was helping build something far more valuable than quarterly earnings. The real test came unexpectedly on a Tuesday morning. Master Han had just arrived at the office when his phone rang. Shuai had collapsed during physical education. The school nurse suspected appendicitis, and an ambulance was on its way. "I'll meet you at the hospital," he told the woman, already signaling for his driver. "But your regional directors are flying in," his assistant protested. "Reschedule them," he ordered, an edge in his voice that brooked no argument. At the hospital, he found the woman pacing anxiously in the waiting room. Gulu sat quietly in a chair, unusually subdued without her twin's energy. When she spotted Master Han, relief flickered across her face. "Where's Shuai?" he asked, his heart pounding with unfamiliar fear. "They're examining him now," the woman explained. "The doctor thinks it's definitely appendicitis. They're preparing for surgery." For a man accustomed to controlling every variable, the helplessness was excruciating. No amount of money or influence could guarantee his son's safety. All he could do was wait alongside the woman who had faced countless challenges without him. When the surgeon finally emerged, his expression was reassuring. "The procedure went well. He's young and strong. He'll make a full recovery." Relief washed over them both. Later, sitting beside Shuai's hospital bed, watching the boy's chest rise and fall in sleep, Master Han realized how completely his priorities had shifted. The board meeting, the regional directors, the quarterly projections, all had receded into insignificance compared to this child's welfare. Over the following days, as Shuai recovered at home, Master Han arranged to work remotely, spreading reports across the living room table, while helping prepare meals and entertaining Gulu. He attended video conferences with Shuai dozing against his shoulder, occasionally muting the call to answer a drowsy question from his son. His executive team was baffled by this transformation. The man who once demanded around-the-clock availability from others was now setting boundaries around his own time. Meetings were scheduled around school pickups. Weekends became largely unavailable. His phone was silenced during dinner. "You've never taken this much personal time in all the years I've known you," his CFO commented during a call. I've never had anything this important before, Master Han replied simply. The woman observed these changes with cautious optimism. One evening, as they sat together after the twins had gone to bed, she addressed what had been unspoken between them. They're beginning to depend on you, she said softly. I need to know this isn't temporary, that you won't disappear when business demands it or when this novelty wears off. Her question cut to the heart of his own unspoken fear. Would he eventually revert to the man he had been? Would the pull of his former life prove too strong? I've spent my life building a company I thought defined me, he answered carefully. Now I'm learning to build something else, a relationship with my children, with you. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, but I can promise I'll never stop trying to be worthy of the trust you're beginning to place in me. As trust grew between them behind closed doors, the world outside remained unchanged in its cruel judgments. Master Han was about to discover that while winning over her children had been challenging, society would prove a far more formidable opponent, one that had been reinforcing the boundaries between their worlds for generations. Their first public outing as a couple was to a waterfront restaurant Master Han had frequented for business dinners. He wanted to share something of his world with her, believing it would be a simple pleasure. What he failed to anticipate was how quickly their evening would transform from romantic to revelatory. Your assistant can wait at the bar, the maitre d' said smoothly after glancing between them. We'll call for her when your other guests arrive. The silence that followed felt eternal. Master Han's expression hardened, his jaw tightening, as he prepared to unleash the kind of dressing down that had made executives tremble. Before he could speak, she placed a gentle hand on his arm. Actually, I'm his dinner companion, she said with practiced ease, her voice betraying none of the hurt flickering in her eyes. Table for two, please. The maitre d' recovered quickly, making apologies that sounded rehearsed rather than sincere. As they followed him to their table, Master Han leaned close to her ear. How can you be so calm? He just insulted you. Insulted us. She offered a small, resigned smile. Because it happens all the time. This wasn't the first, and won't be the last. The only difference is that usually I don't have someone beside me noticing it's wrong. Throughout dinner, Master Han became acutely aware of the stares directed their way, whispers behind hands, sidelong glances, and the subtle shift in service overly formal with him, pointedly brief with her. The restaurant staff addressed all questions to him, as if she couldn't possibly have preferences or opinions worth hearing. I never noticed before, he said later, as they walked along the waterfront. All these invisible lines dividing people. I moved through the world without seeing them, because they weren't barriers for me. That's how privilege works, she replied, not unkindly. The walls that contain some of us are invisible to others. The social obstacles they encountered weren't limited to public spaces. At a community event at the twin school, they faced judgment from both sides of the class divide. Parents from affluent families clustered together, casting curious glances at this unexpected pairing. One mother approached them with a manufactured smile. Master Han, what a surprise to see you at our little school function. Are you sponsoring something? Your company has always been so generous with charitable contributions. The implication was clear. What other reason could explain his presence? When he introduced her as his partner and the mother of his children, the woman's smile froze before she excused herself with sudden urgency. Meanwhile, the parents from her social circle watched with knowing looks that communicated a clear message. This wouldn't last. Her closest friend, Lin, pulled her aside while Master Han was talking with the twins' teacher. He might enjoy slumming it for now, Lin whispered urgently, but men like him always return to their kind. They can vacation in our world, but they don't build homes here. When she shared these comments with Master Han later that night, he paced their small living room, anger radiating from him in waves. They don't know me. They have no right to judge what we're building. But they're not entirely wrong, she countered, her voice quiet but firm. Your world has expectations, traditions. Your family has made it clear I don't belong there. My friends have watched women like me get their hearts broken by men like you. We're trying to build something in a no man's land where neither of us quite fit." The reality of their situation became increasingly apparent with each social encounter. Her friends kept a careful distance, protective walls erected from years of experience with class exploitation. His business associates made awkward conversation with her at corporate functions, their condescension thinly veiled as they asked questions about her little job and marveled at how articulate. After one particularly difficult evening at a business gala, where a board member had loudly wondered if Master Han was going through some kind of midlife identity crisis, they sat in silence in his car, the divide between their worlds feeling insurmountable. "I used to think money and power could solve any problem," Master Han said finally, staring out at the city lights. "But they can't build bridges across this gap. Sometimes they only make it wider." She turned to study his profile in the dim light. "Do you regret it?" "Us? Never," he answered without hesitation. "But I'm angry at a world that makes us question ourselves for choosing each other." The most painful moments came when they realized there was no space that truly welcomed them both. At upscale restaurants and elite social clubs, she was viewed as an interloper. In her neighborhood cafes and community centers, he was the outsider whose wealth created invisible barriers. Even family homes became battlegrounds. His parents' estate felt like hostile territory to her, while his presence in her modest apartment building drew curious stares from neighbors. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day navigating these social minefields, Master Han found her sitting alone on the apartment balcony, staring at the city below. "Everyone is waiting for us to fail," she said without turning. "Your family, my friends, your colleagues, the twins' teachers, they're all just waiting for the moment this experiment collapses. Then let them wait forever," he replied, pulling up a chair beside her. "Because what they don't understand is that we're not trying to fit into either of our worlds. We're building something new." That night marked a turning point. Rather than continuing their exhausting attempts to gain acceptance in spaces determined to reject them, they began creating their own traditions and gathering places. They found a small restaurant owned by a couple with a similar story, Hugh from wealth, she from a working-class background, who had faced their own battles against social prejudice. They invited other families who defied conventional social boundaries, slowly building a community that valued connection over classification. Master Han's growing frustration with systems of privilege transformed into purposeful action. He used his business influence to challenge unspoken class barriers, implementing policies that created more economic mobility within his company. The status markers he once valued, exclusive memberships, luxury brands, restricted access, now represented the walls he was determined to dismantle. "The greatest luxury," he told her one evening, as they watched the twins playing in the park, "isn't having what money can buy. It's being free from caring what others think of your choices." Their decision to face society's judgment together wasn't made in a single dramatic moment, but through 1,000 small choices to prioritize their connection over comfort, authenticity over acceptance. When they walked into rooms together, they no longer sought to justify their relationship or ease others' discomfort. They simply existed, their very presence challenging assumptions about who belonged with whom. The family summit loomed like an approaching storm front on the horizon. While the twins had begun accepting Master Han into their lives, and the couple had started facing society's judgment together, the ultimate test remained. Bringing both families under one roof, where centuries of class division would either collapse or solidify into permanent walls. Master Han had faced business rivals and market crashes throughout his career, but nothing had prepared him for watching his mother's appraising gaze fall upon the woman he loved, measuring her worth against standards that had nothing to do with character. The private dining room at the Golden Lotus restaurant, became neutral ground for their encounter, carefully selected for its balance of elegance without ostentation. Master Han arrived early with his partner and the twins, ensuring they were present as hosts rather than guests. The woman's family entered first, her mother, with calloused hands, hidden in her lap, her younger brother with earnest eyes that darted nervously around the opulent space. They sat stiffly on plush chairs that probably cost more than their monthly earnings. Master Han checked his watch 3 times before his parents finally swept into the room. 40 minutes after the agreed time. The message was clear. Their time was more valuable. His mother's entrance was a masterclass in subtle dominance. Her silk shipao whispered wealth with every movement, her jewelry catching light without appearing gaudy. The twins' grandmother's weathered hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass, suddenly conscious of her drugstore nail polish beside the professionally manicured hands of Master. "We apologize for our tardiness," his father announced without a hint of actual regret. "The traffic from our side of the city was simply impossible tonight." "No need to explain," the woman's brother responded, with surprising composure. "We understand some journeys are longer than others." The loaded response hung in the air, understood by everyone as more than a comment about physical distance. Master Han suppressed a smile at the subtle pushback, realizing his partner's family possessed a quiet dignity his own relatives had yet to recognize. His servers brought the first course. Conversation attempts sputtered like faulty engines. His father's question about the woman's career ambitions revealed his inability to fathom contentment without constant advancement. Her brother's innocent inquiry about household staff exposed the vast gulf between daily realities. Each exchange highlighted not just different experiences, but entire worldviews forged in separate universes. "And how exactly do you manage childcare with your work schedule?" Master Han's mother asked, her voice dripping with faux concern. "It must be so challenging without proper help." The question carried clear implications about perceived inadequacy, and Master Han watched his partner's shoulders tense. Before she could respond, Gulu piped up from her seat. "Mom is the best at everything," she announced, completely unaware of the tension. "She taught me to make dumplings last week. Grandma Han, can you make dumplings?" Master Han's mother blinked, clearly unprepared to be questioned about domestic skills. Well, we have staff who handle such matters. But don't you like cooking?" Shuai joined in, genuine confusion on his face. "Mom says food tastes better when you make it with your own hands." "Food tastes better when prepared by professionals," Master Han's father interjected firmly. The twins exchanged glances, processing this strange concept. Then Shay turned to his maternal grandmother. "Remember when you showed me how to fold the edges?" Master Han couldn't do it right at first, but he practiced all night. This revelation, that the powerful CEO had struggled with dumpling folding and persisted through failure, created a momentary bridge. The twins continued, oblivious to the social hierarchies, weaving stories that humanized both families. They described Master Han's father's impressive office building with the same enthusiasm as their other grandmother's talent for storytelling, assigning equal value to both worlds. The tentative truce shattered when Master Han's mother, unsettled by the twins' easy navigation between worlds, remarked, "Children need structure and discipline. I notice they seem rather informal in their behavior. In our family, children were taught proper etiquette before they could walk." The woman's face flushed with anger. "My children have been raised with love and respect for themselves and others. They know the difference between good manners and empty performances." "Are you suggesting our traditions are merely performance?" Master Han's mother's voice turned icy. "I'm suggesting that children should be allowed to be children before they're forced to become perfect heirs to family legacies." The dining room crackled with tension. Master Han placed his hand over his partner's, a silent show of solidarity that didn't go unnoticed by either family. The twins fell quiet, suddenly sensing the conflict their innocence had temporarily bridged. An unexpected détente came from the corner of the table, where Master Han's father and the woman's elderly uncle had fallen into conversation. The older men, initially separated by class and circumstance, discovered a shared appreciation for craftsmanship. 42 years I spent at that factory, the uncle explained, his weathered hands gesturing proudly. Started sweeping floors, ended up supervising quality control for every engine that left the line. Quality control, Master Han's father repeated, nodding with genuine respect. The foundation of any successful enterprise. I've always said the difference between success and failure lies in attention to detail. Exactly right. Can't cut corners and expect things to hold together. Whether it's engines or empires, same principle applies. This unexpected alliance, based on shared values rather than shared circumstances, provided breathing room as dinner progressed. Master Han watched with fascination as the two men continued discussing work ethics and professional pride, finding common ground where none seemed possible. The uneasiness never fully dissipated, but small moments of connection emerged through the carefully choreographed meal. His mother, and the woman's mother, discovered a mutual passion for traditional Chinese medicine. His cousin and her brother bonded over a popular mobile game. These fragile threads couldn't yet weave a tapestry of family unity, but they offered possibilities neither side had anticipated. As dessert was served, Master Han rose from his seat, his heart pounding with a nervousness he hadn't felt since his first major business presentation decades earlier. The stakes now felt infinitely higher. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, he began, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. I know this gathering wasn't easy for anyone. Two families with different histories, different traditions, different expectations have come together because of two remarkable children and their extraordinary mother. He looked directly at his parents. You raised me to value excellence, to build something meaningful, to carry our family legacy forward. I stand before you today having found the most meaningful purpose of my life, not in boardrooms or balance sheets, but in the eyes of my children and the love of this incredible woman. Turning to his partner's family, he continued, you welcomed me, reluctantly at first, and with good reason, into a world where worth isn't measured by wealth but by character. You've taught me the dignity of honest work and the richness of genuine connection. He reached for his partner's hand. I love this woman, and our children, more than I ever thought possible. My commitment to them isn't contingent on anyone's approval, though I deeply hope for your blessing. This isn't a merger or acquisition where terms can be negotiated. This is my family, my heart, my future. The silence that followed wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. His father cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable but not dismissive. You've always been stubborn once your mind is made up. Perhaps that determination will serve you well in this unconventional arrangement. From his partner's mother came simpler words. Take care of my daughter and grandchildren. That's all I ask. While his partner's mother had asked only that he care for her family. Master Han couldn't have anticipated how profoundly that simple request would reshape his identity. 1 year later, the man who once commanded boardrooms with cold precision found himself kneeling in dirt, building a garden with his children. And for the first time, his success couldn't be measured in profit margins. The sun warmed his back as he showed Gulu how to gently plant seedlings in the small vegetable patch behind their home. She giggled when soil smudged across his forehead, something that would have mortified him just months ago. Nearby, Shuai experimented with the garden hose, adjusting the spray pattern with scientific curiosity. Master Han caught his partner's eye from across the yard, and her smile reflected a shared understanding. The transformation occurred not through dramatic declarations, but in thousands of small decisions. Each morning, Master Han woke early to review urgent business matters before the twins stirred, creating rigid boundaries around family breakfasts and school drop-offs that remained sacrosanct on his calendar. His executive team had adapted to this new rhythm, learning that between 7:30 and 8:45 a.m., their CEO was unreachable. He belonged to his family during those precious morning hours. Yet integration, rather than separation, defined his new approach to life. Rather than compartmentalizing his worlds, he sought to bring humanity into his corporate sphere while introducing his children to appropriate aspects of his professional life. Last month, he had brought the twins to the company's annual family day, watching with quiet pride as they explored the offices where decisions affecting thousands were made. When Chi had proudly announced to the marketing director that his father had built their garden with his own hands, Master Han recognized the kind of legacy that truly mattered. The internal tug-of-war remained constant. Each week brought moments where professional demands tested his commitment to this balanced life. Calendar conflicts between board meetings and school functions required difficult choices. Business contacts from Shanghai or New York, unaccustomed to his new boundaries, still scheduled calls during family dinner hours, forcing him to decline or reschedule. Sometimes, his old instincts surged forward, the drive to dominate markets, to pursue growth at all costs, to measure worth through achievements rather than relationships. These moments revealed how deeply his transformation had taken root. When the Singapore expansion required an emergency trip that coincided with the twins' spring performance, his decision happened without internal conflict. "I have to take care of the child, so I don't have time to attend the meeting," he informed his stunned executive team. The old Master Han would have delegated parenting without hesitation. The new one recognized these irreplaceable moments as the true currency of life. His company's policy manual, once focused exclusively on productivity and profitability, now reflected his evolved values. Parental leave expanded from the legal minimum to 16 weeks. Flexible schedule options emerged for working parents. An on-site childcare facility opened its doors, with scholarships available for workers at every level of the organization. When questioned about these expenses by traditional board members, Master Han simply stated that supporting families wasn't charity. It was sound business strategy that reduced turnover and increased loyalty. The financial reports validated his approach. Employee retention improved by 27% in the first quarter after implementing these changes. Productivity metrics showed sustained improvement as workplace satisfaction scores climbed. The market noticed, with industry publications highlighting the company's innovative approach to work-life integration. Master Han had discovered that humanizing his business model strengthened rather than weakened the bottom line. Perhaps most surprising was his comfort with simplicity. The man who once considered manual labor beneath his dignity now spent weekends building bookshelves for the twins' growing collection. His hands, once soft from a lifetime of pushing papers, now bore calluses from weekend carpentry projects. He cooked family meals on Sundays, having discovered unexpected joy in mastering dishes that delighted his children. The designer suits still hung in his closet, but weekends found him in jeans and work shirts, indistinguishable from any other father at the community park. His relationship with wealth shifted fundamentally. Money remained a tool rather than a measure of worth. When Schwa needed a new bicycle, Master Han resisted the impulse to purchase the most expensive model, instead taking his son to select one within a reasonable budget. The lesson in value versus price seemed more important than displaying their financial capacity. For Gulu's birthday, he spent weeks crafting a dollhouse rather than ordering a custom creation from Europe's finest artisan. The delight at finding miniature furniture that matched their actual home confirmed he had made the right choice. His partner witnessed these changes with a mixture of amazement and quiet validation. Their relationship deepened through shared experiences, both mundane and meaningful. Parent-teacher conversations, home renovations, and late-night conversations about their hopes for the children. The woman who had once regarded him with justified skepticism now trusted him with her vulnerabilities, her dreams, and most importantly, with co-parenting responsibilities. They formed a partnership based on mutual respect rather than traditional power dynamics, challenging his long-held assumptions about relationships. On the anniversary of that fateful family dinner, Master Han found himself reflecting on his journey while watching the twins play in the yard. The metrics by which he measured success had fundamentally changed. Professional achievements still mattered, but they occupied a different place in his hierarchy of values. The quarterly reports and market shares that once consumed his attention now paled beside Shua's improved reading scores and Gulu's growing confidence in mathematics. "I should have found you sooner, sorry," he said quietly one evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the twins chase fireflies. The simple phrase contained volumes: regret for the years lost, gratitude for the present, and commitment to their future. His partner squeezed his hand in response. No further words necessary between them. The most profound revelation came unexpectedly during a routine weekend. While helping Shua with a science project involving plant growth, Master Han realized he no longer felt like he was playing a role or fulfilling an obligation. The man patiently explaining photosynthesis wasn't a CEO temporarily slumming as a father. This was his authentic self, the person he was meant to be all along. In seeking to win acceptance from a family, he had discovered parts of himself long buried beneath ambition and expectation. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had entered their lives believing he would elevate them through his wealth and position. Instead, they had enriched him immeasurably by reconnecting him with fundamental human experiences: wonder, playfulness, unconditional love, and the profound satisfaction of nurturing another's growth. His definition of wealth expanded beyond balance sheets to encompass moments of connection that no financial instrument could measure. As Master Han stands in the garden, watching his family, he finally understands what psychologists have long confirmed: that genuine fulfillment comes not from the corner office or investment portfolios, but from the messy, beautiful connections we forge with others. His transformation wasn't merely exchanging one lifestyle for another. It was discovering that authentic happiness requires vulnerability. Each time he crosses the threshold between his past and present worlds, he demonstrates that social barriers exist primarily in our minds. When he chose to confront both internal doubts and external prejudices, he discovered something profound: that true wealth isn't what we accumulate, but who we become through loving others authentically.